In the previous video, I touched on the topic of power requirements and how they affect the tools and equipment that you use. In this video, we'll take a little bit of a deeper dive into that topic and really explore the differences in power requirement, power recommendation, torque, and work. Let's get into it. The first thing we need to remember in Farming Simulator is that it is a game, it is a piece of software. That means that it is built on commands, it is built on variables, and more importantly, those variables are meant to make the user experience smoother and more enjoyable. In some situations, it's possible that the variables may even operate completely silently in the background, in such cases like physics calculations. We know that as we drive this harvester across this field, it is moving around in relation to the ground, and it is numbers, variables, and how they interact in the background that is telling the system, the game engine I should say, how to do that and when. Additionally, when we're speaking of more discrete values such as power requirements and power recommendations, a header may not actually list that specific variable because it is generally not needed. In order to keep the player experience simpler, a header will generally come with an accompanying harvester on its own. That harvester will automatically come with the power needed to run that header, as well as overcome any obstacles such as troughs, ditches, hills, slopes, etc. that the tool may encounter. As we start talking about ground implementing tools such as cultivators and seeders, the conversation changes a little bit. These do have a discrete value that comes with them. Although it can be read as a power requirement, it's easier to read them as a power recommendation. The power recommendation for these tools comes in various forms, but very simply can be read as, in order to use this tool, this much power is recommended. For example, we have here 3 tractors. We have ourselves our blue Valtra. This is going to be 201 horsepower, just at 6.5 tons. Here we have a green Fendt. It is going to be 142 horsepower and just over 5 tons. And this small one at the end is going to be a Massey Ferguson, our nice red tractor. That's going to be 95 horsepower and weigh just under 3.5 tons. All 3 of them have connected to a Horsch Turano 3FX. This is a 3-meter wide cultivator, deep cultivator. It requires 140 horsepower, at least in the shop, to use. We're actually going to show here that is not necessarily the case, but what happens when you go below and above that rating. So first we're going to get into our Massey Ferguson. We're going to start it up. And as we lower and use the tool, we'll notice at the bottom right, I have a percentage of engine load over the last 60 frames. It's immediately going directly to 90s and up to 100. It's having a lot of trouble pulling this implement across this field. That 140 horsepower recommendation is really hitting this tractor hard. It is not able to build power or speed. This is a 9-mile-per-hour implement, and we're wavering everywhere between 5 and 7 miles per hour. So this implement is not meant for this tractor, but it is able to use it. In fact, if we pick it up, you can notice, I'll do it one more time, this tractor does lean back quite a bit, takes a lot of pressure off those front wheels. It may affect steering in situations where we're having to pick up the implement multiple times over a trip. And here we are using the Fendt. We're actually going to go ahead and start it. And once again, we're going to put this into the ground and we're going to start driving forward. This one is exactly designed for this particular implement, and it goes directly to 9 miles per hour, sitting at upper 80s, lower 90s in load on the engine. And it maintains that speed very well. Looks like it went down to 8 when we hit that small divot. Something there. But it does maintain very well. This is exactly the type of tractor this implement had in mind. And now we're going to move to the Valtra. We'll start it up. We'll engage our implement, and as we drive forward, we'll notice, even though it is shifting a lot, that has more to do with how the transmission works in this particular model. It looks like it has no trouble maintaining that 9 miles per hour, and it's not even hitting 80% load. This is a tractor that greatly overpowers the need for this particular cultivator. And goes to show that when you have significantly more power than the cultivator asks for, or when the ground implemented tool asks for, it can make a large difference. Now, as we look at our lineup here, we're going to talk about horsepower versus torque. Horsepower is the ability to transport a specific load, such as this cultivator, across a specific distance, such as this field, over a specific amount of time. Now, we didn't time these because there wouldn't be enough of a difference to really show a practical result. However, we did see that this one had a lot of trouble maintaining even 7 miles per hour coming down the line. That means that it is going to be physically slower getting to this point. It shows that the horsepower is lower. The horsepower of this tractor is not meant to pull this much weight, as well as the weight of itself. We do need to remember that the tractor itself does have weight. This is a 5.5 ton total package. This much horsepower is not meant to pull that much weight. As well, when we're talking about the drag, that can cause additional weight in the method of resistance, but that's not very easily calculable within the game engine, so we'll move on. This tractor had no trouble whatsoever. It was exactly what the cultivator was looking for, but it did dip below 9 miles per hour a couple of times when it hit a few divots, maybe some troughs in the ground. So it most likely did have a little bit more trouble getting to this point under the time constraint that the Valtra created. Now we'll go talk about the Valtra. This one had absolutely zero problem getting up to speed, maintaining speed, and keeping its speed the entire duration. So this one very likely moved the fastest to get to this point. Now once you go above the power recommendation for a particular implement, as long as you're able to overcome the weight of the implement as well, you will always be able to do that. And as long as you are able to keep full speed of the implement, the operating speed of the implement at maximum at all times, you will receive the greatest efficiency from that implement. Let's move on. We'll go to something a little bit harder, and I'll show you why that might matter. And here we are on Elm Creek, plot 25, next to field 30. If you've used this field before, then you may remember that there is quite a gnarly hill here. It goes all the way up to the tree line, but the field actually does not. I have actually plowed this field all the way up to this field tree line before, and it was very difficult, and I'm actually going to show you why. So first, we're going to take this unit. This one was not able to break 7 miles per hour when it was on flat land, so I don't expect much from it, but it will at least still do it. So as we move forward, it's immediately going directly to 100% usage. It's in its medium gear, but it's all the way up in gear 8. I imagine as engine rotational speed, the RPM goes down. It's actually going to downshift quite a bit. We're already at 5 miles per hour. This unit clearly is not able to do this kind of trek. We're not even to the edge of the field yet, and we're at 4 miles per hour. As we go past the edge of the field, it's just bogging down further and further and further, and it's not able to build power, it's not able to build speed, it's having a lot of trouble with this. We're at less than half of the operational speed of this tool. Trying to use this tractor for this tool is feasible. You could do it on flat land, but if you had the money to purchase something bigger, better, it's really going to make a difference, and I'm actually going to demonstrate that right here. So let's go ahead. We're going to lift this up, and we see that lean right there again. That is exactly what I was expecting. And here we are on our green Fent. Remember, this one only had 2 horsepower of overhead over this cultivator, so it has 142 horsepower. goes directly to 9 miles per hour because we're relatively flat. But as we start climbing the hill, if you notice, that engine load is over 100%. We are fully overloading this engine. We're down to 8 miles per hour, and as we climb this hill, we notice that it is getting steeper and steeper. Down to 7. We might drop to 6. That RPM is not happy with us. Looks like it was able to make it all the way up here to with 7, but that goes to show that even the power recommendation may not be accurate if what you're doing is a little bit outside of what the game expects. On flat land, this tractor was absolutely perfect. It was exactly what this cultivator needed. But as we got into this massive hill, this tractor just chugged just as much as the smaller tractor. So now we are going to try the Valtra. The Valtra has a significant amount of overhead. It's over 200 horsepower. Not by much. It's only 201 horsepower, but it is a good bit heavier. It is also significantly more powerful than this cultivator really needs. As a result, as we start climbing this hill, it's maintaining 9 miles per hour very well, even as we go past the edge of the field. And we're still maintaining. It looks like it's going to make it all the way to the top of the hill, and it absolutely did. So this tractor is significantly more than what this cultivator needs. However, in a circumstance like this, where I'm working on a massive hill like this, attempting to go against the hill, it absolutely seems like having that much larger overhead is a significant boon to using this particular tool. Next, we're going to have a look at how torque affects moving tools. Torque really works more into work. Work is moving weight from one place to another, but really, work doesn't interact with horsepower. Power and torque are two separate evaluations that don't directly intermingle, even though they can. Most of the time, when we're working with work, we're working with moving heavy objects from point A to point B rather than performing anything that requires power, such as a ground implementing equipment. So here we are on the hill to the east of Field 33, Plot 25. Those of you who have used this northeastern plot will most likely recognize this road as the primary road to get to and from the store. Additionally, if you've ever used this particular farm and you have found that water was a little bit too expensive, putting down a water tank, you may have used this road as well to come down to this little pond to the right of the store and actually fill your water tank here and then drag it back up this road. If you have, then you know that the upper portion of this road is very steep and difficult to climb for most vehicles unless you severely overpower what it is that you're carrying, particularly the 32,000 liter tanker truck. That will have a lot of trouble getting up this hill. In fact, if I were to look at this hill in the real world and know that I'm driving a large truck like that with a heavy load, I would absolutely not dare go up this hill. I would find another way around. And that is actually because you would most likely damage parts in the transmission, the differential, something like that. So in light of that, that's exactly what we're going to do. First things first, we're going to get in our Mack truck here. This is a 425 horsepower Pinnacle. As we start it up, we will see that the truck starts off fine from our side. Now, we didn't have a running go at this, so this truck is going to be exclusively relying on its transmission to find the right gear, to really dig deep and put the torque on the ground to get this up this hill. The 500 horsepower trucks have very little issue doing this, but this 425 looks like it's having quite a bit of an issue. Dipped down to 4 miles per hour there, and it's still digging for proper gearing to get up this hill, and it's just barely crawling. It looks like it is able to press, but it does so very, very slowly. And that's actually just to point out the fact this is a very difficult hill for this particular type of load. And I hear you may be considering to yourself, but 32,000 liters doesn't sound like a lot. In the context of water and liquid, it is. When you remember that water is significantly more dense than solids, particularly grain, grain has a lot of air in it. As well, the solid itself is not overly dense. As a result, water being as dense as it is also makes it extremely heavy. Here we have our 201 horsepower Valtra, but it actually doesn't seem to be having too much of an issue pulling this trailer. And that being said, we're not quite to the hard part yet. It's moving along at about 4 miles per hour, but I would like to point out this is less than half of the horsepower of the truck. The reason for that has to do with the gearing as well as the engine. The engine in tractors is specifically designed to maximize torque while optimizing horsepower. Engine speed is usually kept very low, and output speed through the transmission is also kept low in order to keep torque high. The lower your gearing, the higher your torque, the lower your speed. Due to this, tractor transmissions will usually have significantly higher torque and lower speed on average. When we're talking about a truck transmission is meant to drive long distances and maximize fuel economy for the load that is being moved. As a result, it maximizes the optimization between output speed and power. The power to move a load like this is significantly greater than it would be for moving, say, grain, as we said previously. Thus, the high horsepower number of a truck and a high horsepower number for a tractor are significantly different in context. That is why many tractors that have high horsepower numbers in the 400, 500 horsepower range are significantly more expensive because the parts are significantly beefier to handle the torque going through them, but also because they're meant to do significantly more work than a truck would. Let's move on to a different example. And in our campaign to destroy every expensive transmission we come to, I have chosen a Massey Ferguson 7726. This is a very specific model. I chose this one very specifically for this task because this one has a CVT transmission. If you look at the bottom right, there are no gears. There is only drive, neutral, and reverse. Additionally, this tractor is about 1 ton less than our truck, our Mack Pinnacle that we used previously, and it boasts about 280 horsepower. The reason I chose a CVT transmission for this is actually to show a little bit of a difference in how the transmissions operate. Up to this point, we've used nothing but manual transmissions, except for the Fendt during the cultivator tests. That tractor, if you remember, was able to apply its power very smoothly throughout its torque band, and it naturally adapted to the landscape even when it was on the slope. The engine wasn't bogging, the transmission wasn't digging for gears, looking for a good torque and power balance. It was simply applying its torque curve to the ground in a smooth, efficient manner. CVT transmissions, that's actually how they work. They're able to automatically change their drive ratio dynamically to have the output shaft match the requirement for power on the ground. We're actually going to go ahead and just show you what I mean as we move forward. We're immediately going to 80%, now 90% engine usage. And even as we climb to 100% usage, the transmission is not budging. It's not having to shift, grind, it's not having to search for gears. We're just maintaining our 100% usage, and we're applying all of that power directly to the ground. Everything the engine is having to offer, everything that we want on the ground is going to the ground directly through the tires. Every time a manual transmission shifts in this kind of circumstance, you lose a little bit of ground in order to try to make it back up with a lower gear. That is very inefficient processes for something like this. Now, while this is a very a very not practical application for this type of engineering, I will say that it does showcase exactly what I mean extremely well. Because we're able to maintain our speed, maintain our power, we're not having to constantly build and reduce our power. We're simply applying power, and power is making it to the ground through that wonderful CVT transmission. The CVT transmission in cars may not work the same way this one does, but that is just a wonderful thing. It's an excellent pinnacle of engineering for CVT transmissions. This tractor, being less than 300 horsepower, was able to move this massive load all the way up the hill. Now, granted, it did it very slowly. My animals going up to that farm probably would have thirsted to death waiting for me to make it up that hill doing this. I would have used a much larger tractor, or possibly one of the 500 horsepower trucks if I could afford it. But that being the case, in this particular example, this tractor can physically do it. And from there, we're just going to go ahead and wrap things up. Uh, if you have any comments or if you want to continue the conversation, leave it down below. I will make sure to read all of them. And for the rest of you, have a wonderful day. Cheers.